Let's watch Jackson Hinkle talk to Nicolas Maduro.
I heard you recently say that you thought if President Trump and you had the opportunity to meet, you could have been friends. Now, obviously, he was misled by many false advisors. Do you think that in a potential future Trump administration, there would be room to be friends once in the future?
Sobre Donald.
So, I'm going to read what he is saying. He's speaking in Spanish, and I'm going to say the English type that's underneath it, so I hope that they translated it correctly. I don't agree with everything that Jackson Hinkle does, but man, this takes some damn balls. This takes some cojones. Holy shit, does this take some chutzpah. Regarding Donald Trump, I arrived in September 2018. 1 month exactly, a little over a month after they tried to assassinate me on Bolivar Avenue with drones. I had not returned to Bolivar Avenue since August 4th, 2018. I returned a week ago. And I was at the United Nations General Assembly, and I went. Surprise, Maduro landed in New York to represent my country. And as soon as I landed, Celia and I were on I-95 when it overlooks New York because we landed in New Jersey. Geographically, it's like 45-50 minutes through I-95 to New York. And I received a call from the White House asking for our phone number because a meeting between Donald Trump and Nicolas Maduro was being arranged. And I said, well, this must be a prankster. No, they called here to Miraflores, the White House. The call, the White House, Trump, Maduro. Everything was ready for the meeting. I will not reveal any more secrets. The meeting did not take place. It was later learned. I was in my normal activity. I went there. I went here. I spent 3 days in New York. We walked down Fifth Avenue. We were on Broadway. Already the Fighting Rooster Maduro campaign nickname. I don't know. Oh man, he's saying fast. Slow down, Maduro. Was arriving. I don't know what the Fighting Rooster was, but it was already on Broadway in Times Square. They have great hot dogs there, gringo style, which is only with sausage and sauces. I like that a lot. And there I sat down to eat, and a crowd arrived to greet me with much affection, and I still have it in the house. A street cartoonist saw me and sat down and drew me a very nice caricature. Delcy was there too. That was the last time I went to New York. It later became known. When I went to catch the plane, we went back and I thought, what happened to Trump since he didn't call again? They had called like 3 times. It later came out when the declassified documents came out, and when John Bolton and other Trump collaborators wrote their memoirs, that they prevented Trump from holding the meeting with me. He was determined. But he was blocked by the Secretary of State at the time. I think it was Tillerson, John Bolton. They surrounded him. Mike Pompeo was Mike Pompeo. They surrounded him and prevented him from meeting. And he had 1,000 meetings, and well, he was prevented from meeting with me. We'll have to see his version in due course. If we had met, rest assured that the story would have been different. I don't get involved in U.S. politics. I don't know who is going to win, whether Trump or Kamala wins, but whichever of the two wins, be assured that you have in Venezuela Nicolas Maduro Moro the only guarantee of tranquility, stability of this country. That if they destabilize this country, the consequences for the U.S. will be very serious. Very serious. the consequences for the world and the region will be extremely serious. If they were to impose a coup d'etat, it would be very serious in Venezuela, in South America, and in Latin America. I know what I am talking about because we have prepared ourselves. We want peace, Mrs. Kamala, Mr. Trump. Don't be swayed by the same advisors that led you to say Guaido was president. The last time Jorge, a week before the November 2020 elections in Mexico, 2 hours with 2 special envoys of Trump, you could look it up. I think it was the Washington Post or the New York Times which leaked it. They leaked it because of them, not us. We know how to keep secrets. You do not know with how many we meet throughout the world. Today, George Rodriguez spoke to half the world from all types of places, and we keep silent. They leak things. He met with 2 representatives for 2 hours, and they spent 1 hour and a half sending me a message on behalf of President Trump by then that Guaido was an imbecile, that they had been deceived, that they had made him fail, that he does not like to be a failure, nor does he like to be with a failure. That was the essential message. There's another part that I can't say. I tell Kamala Harris, I tell President Biden, who is still in office, I tell presidential candidate Donald Trump, I tell Democrats, I tell Republicans, think it through. Do not act with hatred, with improvisation. Think. Think it through if you do not want to go back to the Guaido era. Can't you see, as Hinkle said and Karl Marx like to repeat, history first presents itself as tragedy and then as comedy. First, Guaido was presented as a tragedy. How much damage he did to the economy, to society, to social and labor rights, to the stability of the country. And now it is being presented as a comedy of a devil demoness and a puppet muppet. Let us hope that it triumphs and continues to prevail. As Bolivar said, let us hope that peace, stability, and good sense prevail in this hour of the homeland. Thank you.
One more thing. I will contribute my effort to bringing peace to our 2 countries by wearing the Maduro election shirts all around Miami. You got my word.
Bueno, presidente, yo trataré de aportar mi granito de arena y todo mi esfuerzo para que prevalezca la paz en Venezuela, y me encantará pasearme por las calles de Miami con una franela que diga Maduro, presidente.
No, te voy a regalar
No, I'm not going to gift you one that has the fighting rooster on it.
una que sale un gallo pinto. Thank you very much. Que Dios bendiga
May God bless the people of the USA.
al pueblo de los Estados Unidos.
Now this reminds me of when Max Blumenthal went to Venezuela. They were trying to go into Venezuela, I want to say, I think it was under Obama. It had to be, right? Trump tried to go into Venezuela with John Bolton. Maybe it was Trump. I don't know who it was. We were about ready to go to war with Venezuela, and then Max Blumenthal just shows up. And I thought it was amazing. I feel like, in some respects, Max Blumenthal, because he had shown an American face, going on, just a peaceful diplomatic mission, just a journalist asking questions. Just by him being there, it completely broke my, sort of worldview, because instead of the unknown, the abyss, the mystery, Max Blumenthal could get in a plane, fly there, land there, walk around, and even, I think he interviewed the president or some high-end officials. And it was like, damn, I hope nothing happens to Max Blumenthal, not really from Venezuela's side, from the CIA side. I hope that the American government doesn't do anything to Max Blumenthal. And so I think that this conversation was amazing. Like I said before, I don't agree with a lot of things that Jackson Hinkle says. I don't agree with a lot of things that he says. Actually, I agree with, I don't want to say most. I don't know all his positions on all the different policies. We'll just talk about MAGA communism, right? I don't like Donald. I believe him to be a fascist. I don't believe that the rhetoric is overhyped. And we live in a fascist nation. There is no left opposition. So if we're not fascist, then we're just, a hair away from being fascist. A cunt hair. We're just a cunt hair away from being, I guess any kind of hair would be the same, right? But we are fascists. It was up until, 10 to 20 years ago. I've never even heard of a cop getting prosecuted for anything. And then even, today, even when they're on cameras, they're still, blatantly committing crimes. And there's some prosecutions of police officers. But just, there's fascism all around. There's fascism in the public schools. There's fascism with the police. There's fascism in corporations, with the government. The people in charge just want the rabble, the good people, the masses, to shut up and obey. And there is no left opposition. So, if we're not outright just a bunch of Nazi fascists, you don't have the emblems, you don't have the symbols, you don't have, a lot of the overt fascism. We're supposed to be a free country. But without any left opposition, I mean, what other alternatives are there? So it's almost like, I don't even know how to describe it, because it's not like strict top-down hierarchy no matter what, but it is, So I don't like the MAGA part of MAGA communism, and for the longest time I was, let's see, when I first went to college, I was a communist, or thinking about being a communist, but really I was just, I don't know, you just think about these ideas, right? And then, as I grew older, I came across this land reform program. I want to say Bolivia. Bolivia had land reform, and I thought that the idea was actually brilliant. By giving people a piece of land, then the people actually have something invested in America. They got something of their own. And they'll fight for the elites, because the elites want to hold on to their haciendas, their big, corporate buildings and lands, holdings, and all the rest. But if even regular average working class folks had their own home and land, then they would be a part of the system. And so by passing out land reform was actually an anti-communistic measure, because I don't like a lot of the extremes of communism. I don't like I'm going on, and I don't want to just talk about communism here. But I wanted to just say that with MAGA communism, I'm more on the side of its communism than on the MAGA side. But because of Donald Trump being reelected, Jackson Hinkle is looking like a fucking genius. Haas had said that communism won, which got my head scratching. I'm wondering what he meant by that, but I guess there is some genius to it. I think neoliberalism is dead. The Democratic Party is dead. They have, no leverage. They're letting one guy stop them from entering the Department of Education. Neoliberalism is dead. The Democratic Party is dead. You're always going to have conservative versus liberal till the end of all time. But what else is left, I think you have anarchism, you have communism, and you have classical liberalism. And if I was to just quickly critique communism, Stalin fucked communism up. Stalin fucked communism up because he had the gulags, he had the farm collectives, he persecuted his political opponents. When Lenin took power, they had a 7-year civil war. The Russian communists, really fucked up a lot of stuff. Mao, he's going to end up killing 100 million people. And so, we'll go back to Stalin. What could Stalin have done to where, okay, maybe communism isn't so bad? Lenin or Trotsky or Stalin had been elected. When Bernie Sanders talked about democratic socialism, I think that's the biggest thing that's missing from just staunch, violent takeover of the government. And even though, I mean, if a fascist just takes over the government, what are they doing it for? Just for power's sake? Just to make themselves wealthy? Like, it's... A communist is better than a fascist because it's like a communist wants to take over the government to give peace, land, and bread out to everybody. But I don't like the authoritarian perspective of either fascism or communism. And so what I would love to see is communism with the Constitution, communism with the Bill of Rights, communism with all the American constitutionalism, which I'm calling classical liberalism. To me, all the constitutionalism is classical liberalism, because with the Bill of Rights and the enumerated powers, the three branches of government, the rule of law, technically I think that those things could still work even here in America, but a lot of Americans don't know about the American constitutionalism. We weren't taught civics in public schools. I had to stumble upon these things in my independent study. And so the gulags, you just have these big private, these big prisons. You're just throwing people away. Millions of people are getting thrown into the prisons. And then you had the farm collective. So the idea of, okay, we got to get our people bread. Well, they said, well, we're going to put a pile of people on this land. And by putting a pile of people on this land, then we're going to make them farm. And then we're going to steal the wheat, and we're going to steal the goods, and we're going to steal the crops. And so the workers who actually made all the food didn't keep their land or keep their home. They didn't own anything. They were just a farm collective. And so he just kind of treated the whole country like a pile of peasants. I think you could have independent farms, and you could encourage people to raise wheat and raise the staples that we all need. And you don't have to throw so many damn people into prison. The biggest one is just communism with... I like democratic socialism. I don't know if I'm just too good of an American. They have very much demonized the word communism. But since we've never had a left opposition, in a way communism did win, because if classical liberalism, if we're not going to give a hurrah to classical liberalism, then all we have left is anarchism or communism. Or some sort of postmodern, political philosophy that we haven't discovered yet. So whereas I have criticisms of communists, if somebody wants to say, well, you're a democratic socialist, that sounds like a commie to me, I'll be your commie. I'll be your commie. But MAGA communism, that sounds brilliant, because basically it sounds like Jackson Hinkle's already got half the country on his side. And then depending on how, strong his communist leanings are, the idea of communism, just in general, I feel like a communist is just an extreme liberal. So communists care about the community. They care about all of America. Communists think with their hearts, so they want peace, land, and bread for everybody. And they want change. And I think America could endure, 4 years of an elected communist as president. And I think it's much needed. It would be a breath of fresh air. Again, minus the gulags, minus the farm collectives, and minus the violent takeover of power. When you take over power then by violence, then that's the means by which you took power can also depose you. And Stalin was just a neurotic, paranoid psychopath who, once he took power, then he just clinged on to power. And imagine if Stalin would have been brilliant, if Stalin would have actually tried to make sure that communism would, survive forever and ever. He would have had elections. He would have, put the support behind his chosen successors. He would have had a Bill of Rights. Because what's wrong with peace, land, and bread, and also freedom of speech, the right to peacefully assemble, the right to bear arms? the right to kick soldiers out of your homes. The First, Second, Third, Fourth, Fifth Amendment. Why can't you have communism with the Bill of Rights? Why can't you have communism that's elected? Bernie Sanders could be elected. AOC could be elected. Jackson Hinkle's 25, so in 10 years he could be elected. So on MAGA communism, I disagree with MAGA, but that is half my country. But that's because I see MAGA as fascism, as American fascism. And that's all I gotta say about that.